What's up? What's up? What's up? Once again, it is the Sultan of Swag, the Captain of Cool, the Italian stallion himself, the one and only Daddy Cool AC. Cool Down with AC, 1650 PWAM, Pro Wrestling, and more. And I guess this is my second show, my second solo show on 1650 PWAM. I did a show after Raw with Joe Wright, the host of Pillar to Post and co-creator of 1650. And we broke down Raw. We talked about a few other things that is up on the YouTube. I'm not sure if it's up on the iTunes yet. But as we've been saying, hit up that YouTube channel, 1650 PWAM. Hit up that iTunes, 1650 PWAM. Or, search Cool Down with AC. Search Cool Down with AC on iTunes, and you could link up and subscribe to 1650 PWAM from there and listen to all the shows. Cool Down with AC, Blading for Truth, Pillar to Post, and all the stuff we do, collab stuff. DJ Stames will be on some stuff as well, and maybe even our old friend D Smitty, who knows. But tonight we got a lot to get into. I want to talk some Canelo Triple G after Canelo Alvarez, not shockingly to this show host, dismantled Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. rather easily Saturday night. We're going to talk about a little bit about the Kentucky Derby and Daddy Cool's unfortunate circumstances surrounding that. We are going to talk about the ultra-sensitive, I'll save it for later, the ultra-sensitive universe that cannot take even a simple tweet from anyone that is somewhat insulting to their brand. And I'm not even just talking about the WWE, and I'm not even just talking about the fans. We'll get into that later. And of course, I could not do a show on the morning after, I'll call it, the Rangers eliminated by the Ottawa Senators from the Stanley Cup playoff tournament. Even though they should have won the thing in 5 games and didn't. We'll discuss that. Maybe I'll close with that. Maybe I'll close with the ultra-sensitive universe of wrestling people. And I also want to talk a very little bit about Smackdown. Not going to waste a lot of time. But before we get to that, let's open here with the boxing. Canelo dismantles Chavez Jr. Not much of a surprise here. This is one of those things where in these big spots, this is what happens to Chavez Jr. He's not an A-game fighter. He just isn't, and Canelo is. The only time there's been a blemish on the record of Canelo Alvarez was when he was a younger fighter fighting Floyd Mayweather Jr. This fighter, I'm not so sure Mayweather ever would take that fight. And that's probably a reason why Mayweather, because trust me, Mayweather could make every bit of amount of money as he is fighting Conor McGregor, fighting Canelo Alvarez. He wants no part of it. There's a reason for that. Canelo is pretty friggin' good. But they set up the fight everybody wants to see. Finally putting Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, on that national stage he's needed to be on for a while now. You're going to see him. There's experts out there saying that he hasn't gotten better in the last few years. There's experts saying that maybe he's lost something. Maybe he hasn't fought a guy in this level. Probably all true in some way, shape, or form. But that may be a little bit because none of the top guys wanted to fight Gennady Golovkin until Danny Jacobs stepped up and did it. But now we have Triple G versus Canelo. September 16th, I believe, is the date. It's the Mexican Independence Day, always a big day in boxing, always a big weekend for boxing. And you have the most popular Mexican fighter, Canelo Alvarez, fighting Mr. Good Boy himself, Triple G Gennady Golovkin, who has knocked out everyone he's fought, not named Danny Jacobs. Everyone he's fought. I was in the building when he knocked out Curtis Stevens, and it was funny. And the build to that fight, I actually was at Curtis Stevens' open workout in Easton, Pennsylvania, I believe it was called. And I got invited there by a good friend of mine who's a boxing journalist who I hang out with, and that's how I've been to Bernard Hopkins open workouts, and a lot of guys in Philly, a lot of guys in New York, been a lot of press conferences. We get, been to some fights. Usually, it's, I go to the fight with him, but it's a situation where I still have to buy a ticket because unless you're really a member of the press, it's hard to get into those bigger fights. But long story short, I'm a big Triple G guy. So he's fighting Curtis Stevens. So we go down to Curtis's open workout. And I got to tell you, these open workouts, they do their best to make these fighters look like they can tackle Superman. And going there, you really feel like that. And I'm watching Curtis. I'm watching him hit the mitts. I'm watching him work out. And then I listen to him do his interviews. And I actually held the camera while a friend of mine interviewed him. And I was like, wow, maybe this really isn't a gimme for Triple G. And maybe Curtis has a chance. And then a couple weeks later, we end up at Madison Square Garden, and he's knocked down in the second round, and Triple G basically decimates him until they finally stop the fight. So that's kind of how those kind of things go. But the bottom line is this is the biggest... Well, as I'm dropping remote controls here, I apologize. This is the biggest fight boxing can make right now. Anything short of, maybe a Joshua Klitschko rematch. There really is, unless Floyd was to officially come back and fight Canelo, maybe you can make the, well, I don't know, maybe you can make the case if that was to happen. It'd be a bigger fight, but given where everybody's at right now, given the fact that you probably won't see Floyd if and when he fights McGregor, this is the biggest fight boxing can make. And boxing did something that they haven't done in the past. They kind of have been resilient to this, and they did what the UFC has done very well. And I know you pro wrestling guys out there love when this happens because you get to stand on your soapbox and you get to pat yourselves on the back and you get to say how great wrestling promotion is and all of that. And I'll tell you something. When it comes to stuff like this, it really does work. It really does. And kudos to Oscar De La Hoya. Kudos to Golden Boy. Kudos to HBO. Kudos to everybody involved, Triple G, Canelo, for pulling it off because they created more buzz for the sport of boxing and for that fight that night than I've seen in a very, very long time. A very long time. You want to tell me that McGregor and Mayweather will do more buys? I probably would believe it because you're going to get MMA fan that doesn't care for boxing or care to watch boxing will buy that pay-per-view and watch that pay-per-view because it's Conor McGregor. But, excuse me, having said that, this is the best boxing match you can make. This is the best fight for boxing you can make. That is a combat sport fight, almost like a sideshow thing, somewhat of a souped-up exhibition with Mayweather and McGregor. This is the fight of fights. And listen, I've gotten into it with some wrestling fans out there, guys who basically know-it-alls. One of the guys I happen to know, and he likes to argue with me about various things. And basically saying nobody cared was his argument, which I completely, vehemently disagree with, because if you looked at social media late night or into the wee hours of the morning, Saturday to Sunday, they owned the internet. Canelo and Triple G, everything they did, the fight, the setup of the fight, They own the internet. They owned it. Did they cop from wrestling to do it? Absolutely. But why not? Why wouldn't they? The UFC's made their name on doing this stuff. The UFC's done a lot of really good things. And one of those things, and it's probably in the top 5, maybe even the top 3 things they've done, was to take that pro wrestling aspect, to take that build, to take that holy shit moment and make it something. And boxing's never done that, and they did it, and it worked. It's working. Hard to argue the logic behind it. Hard to argue. But I also, they fixed the fight. Chavez fixed the fight because they wanted Canelo and Triple G. I mean, listen, you know nothing about Canelo. You know nothing about Chavez Jr. You know nothing about the families or everything. Listen, I understand you're talking about boxing. Probably the most fixed sport in the history of the world. But you're also talking about now the highest level of fighting. You're not talking about when I worked in the industry and we took a fighter down to Paducah, North Carolina, which I'm not going to tell you where because there's enough people out there that could put 2 and 2 together and figure out where we went. So I'm just going to say Paducah, North Carolina, as Joe White likes to say when you're in bumblefuck wherever. And honestly, this really wasn't even Paducah. But anyway, well, for this argument, we'll call it Paducah, North Carolina. And we took our fighter down there, and we paid some shekels, and he had a fight, and it was a fucking disaster. He probably still did win, but the other guy was paid not to win. Okay, that is the way it goes on those levels because our guy needed a win to get a bigger fight. So we happened to have somebody that was willing to dish out the shekels, and it's kind of how it went. So we spent a day or two and 2 or 3 days down in Paducah, North Carolina, and we got our guy a win. So, I mean, that happens every single day in the sport of boxing. I think there's some lower levels of MMA that it's kind of happening in now based on some of the higher level guys that I know that I've talked to recently. They think some of that shady shit's going on in the lower MMA promotions, which wouldn't surprise me. Which is why I think the UFC has the Ultimate Fighter to try to weed out that kind of shit. Like, all right, this kid's 8-0. He might be serious, but I don't want to give him a contract yet. Let me throw him on the Ultimate Fighter, and he gets his fucking ass kicked up. Yep, because you've seen guys on there that just, how the fuck did this guy in that show? How did he win 4 fights? You know what I mean? You get that. So those things happen. But I'm telling you something right now, given the 2 families, given what it means to Mexican fighters, and I've been around Mexican fighters before, and I've been around their fathers before, okay? Unless you've been around them and their fathers, you don't know what you're talking about. Because I'm telling you something right now, there is a insane amount of pride of standing in there and fighting within the Mexican boxing community. Trust me when I tell you. I've seen it firsthand. I've talked it firsthand. And I've seen it in sparring sessions and everything else. Trust me when I tell you. There is everybody went crazy about the World Baseball Classic this year. And the pride that was shown with the Puerto Ricans and the Dominicans and this, that, and the other thing. I'm going to tell you something right now. And a lot of those same circles, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Dominicans, with fighters, it times it by like 100, okay? You have no idea. It is like almost life and death to them. I'm not even exaggerating. Because if you ever were to meet these kind of people, you would know. Why do you think Canelo Alvarez is so popular? And why do you think Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. isn't that popular considering who his father is? Because he's looked at by the Mexican boxing fan as a rich, spoiled little brat. and Canelo has not looked that way. And Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., the guy who won like, I don't know, 88, 90 fights in his career, he was like, I don't know, 70-0 at one point or something. Yeah, we're going crazy about Mayweather being 49-0. That guy was like 70-0. Okay, I know he has losses because he lost late in his career, but he was like 70-0. That was Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.'s father. Okay, but because he fought for so long and he's such a big Mexican boxing name, he happened to make a lot of money. It probably would have made a hell of a lot more in today's day and age, but he happened to make a lot. And Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is looked on as the spoiled rich kid that didn't live in the gutter. Okay, that's why they love Canelo Alvarez. Now, Chavez Jr. has a younger brother who beat Canelo's younger brother a week before the fight. And there was a big pride thing with the Chavezes about beating the Canelo and this and that, or beating Alvarez's, excuse me. And then, Canelo paid it back. And people saying that Canelo should have went for the knockout in that fight. Why? He won every round. Every round. Okay, he won every round. Let that sink in for a second. He won every round. Why? If you're up 8 rounds to nothing in those last 4 rounds, and you have way bigger fish to fry down the road, why would you ever risk a knockout with a guy that has the power of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.? Ask Sergio Martinez about that. Because Sergio Martinez won the first 11 rounds and then decided he was going to go try to knock Chavez Jr. out, and he got knocked on his fucking ass. I remember watching it with a bunch of fighters and a bunch of promoters and everything else. We're all watching together, and everybody's trashing Chavez Jr. And then in the 12th round against Sergio Martinez, who dominated the entire fight, gets clipped, gets dropped. We were flipping out thinking that, oh my God, he might actually knock him the fuck out in this round. It was crazy. It was crazy. But, I mean, you're also talking about a fighter that has the weed problem. You're also talking about a fighter that has the weight problem. I mean, he's like the Diaz's of boxing. And I was listening to the Fighter and a Kid podcast before the fight. And Brendan Schaub, who, is probably 1A to my favorite Rogan in podcasting, was talking about an HBO special, which I happen to watch too, where it's kind of like a back and forth with Canelo and Chavez Jr. And he hit the nail right in the head. If you watch their interaction, there's no fucking way you could pick against Canelo. I mean, Canelo looked like he was staring through Chavez Jr. and Chavez Jr. wouldn't even look at him. It was very strange, very strange. Chavez Jr. is one of those fighters who, if you saw him fight very young, like I did, because he got a push when he was very young. I mean, I probably saw like his 20th fight. He has like 53 of them now, I think. He looked like he was really going to be the second coming of his father. And hey, listen, whether it's motivation or just a different mind, just a different mindset, maybe it is that he didn't grow up in the gutter. Who knows? You know what I mean? That's, a young Mayweather kid, a Floyd, the Floyd the third or whatever at this point, coming up is going to live a very different lifestyle than Floyd Jr. lived. And especially a different lifestyle than Floyd Sr. lived. So, I mean, that may mean something. And in boxing, I'm telling you something right now, having a little bit of that street attitude in you in boxing and fighting is a big thing, is a very big thing. Unless, and when in MMA, you have the difference with the wrestling. The wrestling has a lot to do with it. But as far as just the badass, savage motherfucker, a lot of those guys weren't, growing up with a silver spoon. Let's be honest. You have your rare circumstances, but these are some badass, hardcore motherfuckers. I mean, that's just the way it is. Just the way it is. All right, we'll move on from there. Let's hit SmackDown quickly, and then we'll get on to Kentucky Derby stuff. SmackDown, it's been more of my favorite than Raw in recent time. I I guess it was better than Raw. I don't know how much it's saying, but I got to take exception with SmackDown this week, too. 24 minutes of wrestling. I counted, and I rounded up. So it probably wasn't even 24 minutes. 24 minutes of wrestling on a 2-hour wrestling show. On a show, by the way, that has AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Randy Orton, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Natalya Neidhart. Has a tag team like the Usos. Has American Alpha. Who the hell knows where the fuck they were? I mean, come on. Who is writing this garbage? They literally had the first 26 some odd minutes all talking and entrances. And then you have a match with Becky Lynch and Natalya Neidhart that ends in 2 minutes? What the fuck? Any other thing? Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. Nobody cares anymore. Why are they not with Bray Wyatt? What does this company do? Like, how can they do something as great as the Wyatt family and a character as great as Bray Wyatt and continually for not like just a short amount of time, for years, screw this up? I mean, they have screwed it up so much that they're like finding new ways to screw it up. Are you kidding me? They got no reaction. None. They had a little 6-7 minute match tops. More like 4 or 5. I'm probably being generous with that. Eric Rowan wins. Okay. Who cares? Come on. Wake up and smell the fucking coffee. What are you doing? And I got to tell you, I know that Ziggler and Knock are going to have a tremendous match at the pay-per-view. I know that Kevin Owens and AJ Styles are going to have a tremendous match at the pay-per-view. I think Sami Zayn and Baron Corbin are going to have a very good match at the pay-per-view. I actually am kind of digging what they're doing with Jinder. I don't like how they got here because I don't need to see Jinder job at Mania and then the next 2 shows and then get a phantom push out of nowhere. But at least if I suspend my disbelief and forget that happened and just take Jinder from when he won the number 1 contender till now, hasn't been bad. Again, not enough wrestling on the show. That part hasn't been bad. And honestly, I think you're going to get a somewhat of a strong style slobber knocker with him and Orton. Now, they'll probably destroy the whole thing by having Randy go over. And I don't think Randy should. Seeing what Jinder's doing, it's reminding me of when The Miz finally turned the corner. And we were all like, oh, yeah, they got to do it with The Miz. They got it. And we keep saying it. They keep doing like a roller coaster thing with The Miz. They'll probably fuck this up. But I'll tell you something. And I can't even believe I'm going to say it. I think they should put the belt on Jinder Mahal. I really do. I think there's a lot of guys that could challenge him on SmackDown. I think the feud with Randy could keep going. If you look at the Money in the Bank situation, it's a SmackDown pay-per-view. I would actually like to see Owens drop. The guy I want to see carry that briefcase is Kevin Owens. I might even want to see him carrying it with the strap on him, but I'd rather see him drop it. But if he still has the U.S. title, I still want him in that Money in the Bank ladder match. And I want to see a few months or more of Kevin Owens carrying that briefcase. Because at the end of the day, Not enough wrestling. But I'll tell you something right now. Opening segment, Orton, Mahal, onto Owens and Styles, and even Baron Corbin and Zayn. Much better opening. Much better opening for them. But all in all, I got to tell you, I'm not. I can't give SmackDown a great rating when you're supposed to be more of the wrestling show, and you give me basically 24 minutes of wrestling. And I got to tell you, I understand the main event, but again, I look at the time, and I'm like, all right, you know what? They gave us shit for wrestling the whole show. We're going to have a half-an-hour wrestling match. Well, then you have the 3 heel entrances, commercial, the 3 face entrances. The match starts, and 2 minutes later, they're back to fucking commercial. You get 6-7 minutes of the match. You get a 3-minute commercial. You see where I'm going here. So, sorry guys, as I gotta send a text here. All right, that text broke my throat. So that's kind of where I'm at with SmackDown. I mean, there really isn't a whole lot to get into because they really didn't do a whole lot. They did a few things. Everything was kind of long and drawn out. And the thing is, on either show, they don't have enough guys that are that good with the microphone to have all these promotional spots. I mean, my God, how much talking went on in 5 hours in the last 2 days with guys who can't even carry the fucking microphone. Very strange. I don't want to sit here and be like I'm a wrestling expert and I just know what I like. I'm just going on by what I like. And this is boring and it sucks and it's stupid to me. And honestly, I feel like a lot of people feel that way because the ratings suck. Listen, if the ratings were through the roof and I didn't like it, you could be like, Fafangul, AC, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But guess what? You can't say that to me because the ratings bear out that I am right. And that Jeff Edwards is right. And that even on occasion, Joe White is right. But a lot's got to change. I don't see it changing. But I have to tell you, I honestly feel like this SmackDown pay-per-view Backlash is going to make Payback look like Child's Play. Because the matches that are booked are just better. They're a lot better, actually. Light years better than what we saw on that shit fucking pay-per-view called Payback from Raw. But anyway, let's move on here. We'll head on to the good old Kentucky Derby. And I'm not going to break down the Kentucky Derby because I just don't know about enough about the horses. But we've got to tell you, most of you know that listen to the show and have listened to 1650 PWAM on iTunes and YouTube. Cheap pop. And have listened to us do our co-shows with Pillar to Post Joe White and Bleeding for Truth Jeff Edwards and co. Know that I'm a bartender. And I have a customer who got me all fired up about the Kentucky Derby. And I usually I watch the Derby, whatever. Halftime of bartending, it's a few mint juleps. But he get me all fired up about it. So Daddy Cool has lunch with a good friend of his earlier that day, the day of the Kentucky Derby this past Saturday. And I'm sitting at the bar with him before I have to go to work myself. And if my bosses are listening, I did not come to work intoxicated. And anybody who says differently, I'd like to put them on a lie detector test. But anyway, I happened to be sitting at a bar having lunch and got a hair up my ass to bet on the Kentucky Derby based on this customer's recommendations. Oh, and beyond. So I decided to take X amount of shekels and play it a bunch of different ways. I bet a couple horses to win, I did a exacta. I did a trifecta. I did a superfecta. And listen, the superfecta paid out 70,000 for every dollar you bet. So if I actually hit it, what's 70,000 times 25? I mean, I'd have to. I mean, I'm pretty good with math, but off the top of my head, let's just look that up because I just want to, I probably would have, put 1650 in a much better spot had I hit this. Where the fuck is my calculator? We'll find it. Hang on, guys. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Calculator. So it was 70,000, a little bit more actually, times 25 would have been 1,750,000 if I hit it. Now, mind you, I didn't even, this is kind of new to me. So I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, he told me if I hit this, I'd win about 1,500, and that was with like a $10 bet. So if I bet 25, I'll probably win like 10 grand. I'm thinking. No, I actually made a bet that I could have won, the better part of $2 million on. So no way that was fucking coming in. So then the trifecta, I believe, paid out what was it per 15,000 per dollar. And I bet $50 on that. It's so funny. Times 50, $750,000. So yeah, I mean, you guys probably wouldn't be hearing from Daddy Cool this week if either one of those came in. Anyway, I'll bet $10 here on this horse, 15 on that horse, 20 on that horse, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I lose all my bets. But while I'm sitting there, my friend goes, hey, put $25 on the 5 horse. I don't even remember that horse's name at this point. For me. I'm like, all right. Horse wins, and he wins fucking money. I think he won like $150 around, in that range. So, yeah. So, I have all these bets placed, and none of them come in. And I'm looking at my account because I got this app to do all the bets. And his horse comes in, and boom, $142.50. So, there you go. And I lost every dime I bet. Which, listen, if I hit like he did, I at least would have somewhat broke even. So there's my Kentucky Derby weekend. And of course I had to work and I was miserable. No, honestly, I wasn't miserable. I looked at it this way. I basically took like $150 and said, I'm going to play with this. And if I lose it, I'm not going to cry about it. Because I basically played it so many different ways that if one horse came in, I would have won the majority of the money back. I just happened to be lucky enough to not hit on any of the bets. I mean, obviously, I didn't think a superfecta or a trifecta was coming in for me because that would be like buku dollars. I mean, I would have been out there at Hollywood with Jeff Edwards had I hit on some of those bets. But, I might have been able to produce his next movie or something. But as luck would have it, that did not happen. And, yeah, here I am talking to you guys again. After working another shift and my feet hurting. Well, that's what we do. That's how we get through. All right. You guys been waiting for it. I brought up the sensitive universe. And for those of you that don't know, as we segue into some fun stuff, for those of you that don't know, I dubbed the sensitive universe not just the WWE universe. It was wrestling as a whole. It was fans, wrestlers, promoters, ring crew, any person that is sensitive about wrestling, which is 99.9999999% of the people who watch and live and do wrestling. And this happened last year when Conor McGregor made his comments about wrestling. And the wrestling world decided they were going to pounce on Conor McGregor with their claws out. How dare he say that about our business? It's real. It's not fake. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Conor McGregor wouldn't last 5 seconds with Brock Lesnar. That might be true. But A lot of what Conor McGregor said, other than the fact that he whooped the whole roster, I mean, just, there's a lot of guys that are 280 pounds, Braun Strowmans of the world. It's, we all know, but we all know what Conor was saying. But a lot of what he said was pretty fucking accurate. Because I don't view wrestling that way. I actually have a internal battle with myself when it comes to wrestling. And I think that's why there's times I'm able to walk away from being this huge wrestling fan. Excuse me, I got to keep sipping because I still got these fucking allergies in there. I don't want to hack a lung off in your ears. So if you hear me sip, I apologize. This internal battle with myself of how much of a wrestling fan I really want to be. And how supportive and how, into it I want to get. Now, when it comes to the guys I'm friends with, obviously I want to support them. I want to support the promotions I like. And I want to go to live wrestling shows here and there and have some fun. I've backed off. Not this past year, the year before, I probably went to 60 live wrestling shows in that range. Probably 40 of them with my buddy Fogman from Center Ring. A lot with my daughter, of course. And I wasn't bartending at the time, so my schedule was a little different. But even if I wasn't, I wouldn't go to that many shows now. I'm just not as into it as I was. I still go see the guys I like and support the guys I like and all that. But what I got to say is there's something about the wrestling community that, this is going to come off really bad, but I got to say it, I don't want to associate myself with. And it's not the, you live in your mama's basement, you're a Melvin, and da-da-da-da. No, it's not even that. And I've heard my buddy Ken Reedy talk about this, and we've talked about this before. Him and I sitting at a bar over a couple beers. Being a wrestling fan, you spend a lot of your time defending the fact that you're a wrestling fan. Which, for the most part, I really don't do. When I get the, how could you like that? It's annoying. Trust me, it's annoying. But I look at it as this person doesn't understand. Why am I going to waste my breath or my time trying to make him understand? So I laugh it off and pay it off, and I don't explain myself because, honestly, I don't need to fucking explain myself to you. That's the way I look at it. And it's annoying, don't get me wrong. But it's also annoying when you like a certain genre of music and people do that to you. Or you like a certain sports team. Why would you like them? You deal with this. Why did you pick those jeans? Why do you like those shoes? Why did you do your hair that way? People are judgmental fucks. And they're going to judge everything you do. And if you're going to spend all this time and effort worried about what these people think or caring about what these people say, how are you ever going to live a happy lifestyle? You can't. It's impossible. So at some point, you need to say, fuck it. I don't give a flying fuck what these people say. I'm going to be me. I'm going to do me. And I'm going to do what makes me happy. I go to work every day. I follow the law. I'm a productive member of society. I pay my taxes even though I don't want to. I take it in the ass every day even though I don't want to. And I go through life. And that's just the way it is. And listen, it ain't easy. We all got stresses. We all got different stresses. We all have some of the same stresses. Maybe we're happy. Listen, I love what I do. It's not perfect. I want to make more money. I want to be more financially secure. But at the same time, I don't have a problem going to work every day. Now, there's aspects of the place I work at that drive me up the wall. But the idea that I love what I do is a big thing for me. So those other stressors are down a little bit because I really do love what I do. And I look at it this way, that I still think there's a little bit more for me in what I do. And we're working towards that. So we'll see what that happens. But getting to my overall point here. If someone didn't like your jeans, whatever, you're going to be like, yeah, fuck that dude. I like him. And leave it at that. But when anyone even makes a little comment about pro wrestling, and you guys might think it's cool and it's cute and it's this, that, and the other, that the pro wrestling world likes to jump all over these people and get on the Twitterverse and get on there and we're going to attack this guy. Come on, guys. We're the biggest cult in the world and we're coming after you, Kings of Leon. I mean, it's beyond the point that this is a sensitive universe, that this is a sensitive community. I gotta call it insecure. I mean, the reaction to all this stuff, if I was a psychologist, would be insecurity. What are you so friggin' insecure about? You have a portion, a very large portion of this wrestling community that wrestles in basically fucking underwear and is still insecure. Maybe you're not insecure about the way you look, but you got to be insecure about what you're doing. If one half-assed musician could send out one tweet saying something that a lot of people feel, to be honest with you. I mean, my own father. And I get why you watch wrestling when you're a kid, but you still watch it now? What am I going to do? Not talk to my old man because he says wrestling's for kids? No. Whatever, Pops. It's annoying. Yeah, but I don't give a fuck. There's stuff he does I don't like. You know what I mean? Like, Pops, I don't want to go out there and have a grapevine. You know what I mean? That was cool when your father did it. It ain't cool now, bro. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? It's not that big a fucking deal. But this insecure universe that a lot of you live in, and it's not just fans. The fans almost follow suit. It's the people in the business. Why are you so insecure about what you do? You supposedly love what you do. You love what you do. But the minute somebody says something that's a little bit against what you're doing or derogatory to what you're doing, it's like they stole your fucking lunch money. Like, was the entire wrestling world bullied as kids? Because that's what it seems like. That's another bully. The guy put out a stupid tweet. And honestly, it isn't even that fucking bad. There are people around this world, in this country, and in this, especially on Twitter, who feel that way. You will destroy that guy and jump all over him. And I say this every time it comes out, but you will let one of your own, Phil Brooks, CM Punk, shit on you at every fucking corner and still want him back. But a guy that means nothing to you, that you don't even care about. Half of the fucking people tweeting, I don't even know his name. The drummer, is he the drummer? He probably is a drummer. I'm going to assume, we'll call him the drummer from Kings of Leon. The drummer from Kings of Leon says wrestling's for kids. And the entire wrestling world needs to pounce on him. Grow some fucking testicles. Please. I sat there on a podcast 8 days ago. I didn't go out of my way to do it. But I kind of ripped Chip Day. And I'm going to give Chip Day credit here. Because he went on the show, and he, with Joe, on Pillar to Post, on 1650 PWAM, Cheap Pop, YouTube, iTunes, check it out. He went on the show, and, you know, he talked about some of the stuff I said, and gave his opinion about it, but he didn't get overly worked up or sensitive about it. Actually, I wish he got more mad, and we could have had like a rubber match. But it didn't happen. But I was thinking to myself, and I'm thinking about this the other day, yesterday, before Joe and I did the post show. And I'm like, that guy is in the minority of wrestlers. The majority of them, they would have took that, what I said, to heart and either ripped me or got sensitive about it or insecure about it. I mean, listen, I talked about the guy's physique. I talked about the fact that he was crying. I talked about the fact that his ring gear looks like Kevin Owens. I mean, kind of assassinated him a little bit. Now, I think the way I went about it, I wasn't trying to be an asshole just for ratings and everything else. I was just breaking down what I saw. But the dude handled it like a pro. He came on the network, answered the questions, said what he had to say like a pro, and we left it at that. Kudos to him. But there's a lot of people in that wrestling world, in that insecure universe, that would not have been able to do that. Why? I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. I was just a little bit while ago talking about hardcore motherfuckers in boxing and in combat sports. Guys that came from nothing, came from the gutter, just these savages, right? What does Floyd Mayweather say? No matter you attack him. And now listen, he may go in the gym and use it as motivation, but what does he say to the media? I'm getting money. I don't care what they say. I'm Floyd. I'm getting money. Stone face. Conor McGregor. People say, oh, Conor's not good enough to beat that guy. Conor's not good enough to beat this guy. I don't give a fuck what you say. I'm going to knock him the fuck out in the first round. Toughness. They all finally scream about how tough they are when they take a chair shot. And when you wrestle a 40-minute match, and when a move goes wrong and you get kicked in the nose. Listen, I know John Cena's tough. Comes back from injuries, broken noses, torn triceps. Gets treated unfairly by half his fan base. Never says anything bad. John Cena is basically the Derek Jeter of the WWE. But he's the exception to the rule. He's the exception to the sensitive universe. He's the exception to the overall attitude where, how dare you say that about us? Why? All those people tweeting back never said anything derogatory about somebody else's business or way of life. Find that very, very hard to believe. The insecurity's real, and I gotta tell you, it makes a guy like me question how involved I want to be in the world of wrestling. I'll get on a podcast and trash the WWE for the next 10 years. I could care less, to be honest with you. But do I want, I put a lot of my wrestling fandom out there on social media. Because I don't care what people think. But at the end of the day, I question it because why do I want to be associated with that crap? When I already hear the nonsense of, oh, how could you be a wrestling fan? That's such a, it's fake, right? It's fake. Yeah, it's fake. Why do you like something that's fake and scripted? The same asshole will probably watch 7 movies the day before. We all know that. We all know that asshole. We all deal with it. But you made the decision, or for whatever reason, you love wrestling. And you want to be in the wrestling world. So you live with that. I have no problem with living with that part of it. Because I don't defend myself to those people. They don't get it. Why waste your breath? Let them think whatever the fuck they want, and you do what makes you happy. But if you're insecure, you do what 95% of the wrestling community does when one little tweet or one little comment happens. I don't understand it. And if you disagree with me, feel free to comment. Feel free to tweet me at AC Cooldown, at AC Cooldown on Twitter, at AC Cooldown on Instagram. And feel free. Send me a message. Send me a tweet. You want to come on a show and discuss it and defend your position? I'll talk to you about it. If I feel like you could bring something to the show, maybe we'll do that. But before we get out of here, I have not forgotten. No, I have not. You are not getting off the hook. Not tonight. Not any night. I got a goalie that they call a king. What king never wins? Never wins. How many great goalies have carried their team to a cup? Not Henrique. Not the quote-unquote king. How many stinking years do I have to watch this franchise go to the playoffs and do what they did again tonight? What they did again this series? How many stinking years? Every year this season starts, they're skating faster this year, and they're going to be better on the power play, and Henrique's going to have that year, and it's the Rangers season, and this and that, and the team is so good, and they go and have the best road record in National Hockey League in the regular season, and they can't close a fucking game on the road in the postseason. How many thinking years? At least with the Knicks, I know they're fucking terrible. I know they suck. I know they're going nowhere. I know they're not doing anything. I have no expectation. But every year, I buy in to this fucking crap that the Rangers have. They found the mix. And it's the same stinking team with the same stinking goalie that can't score on a friggin' power play, that loses games they should win. And again, no cup. 1994. There's been a lot of good teams playing in that building since 1994. Not one cup since 1994. And they want to call the fucking goalie a king? King of what? Losing? Nobody cares if you're a king. You got to win. Win the fucking crown. Win the cup and put it on your head as a goddamn crown, but you got to win it first. Oh, my God, I'm fed up. I don't want to hear a goddamn word about Ranger hockey until, I don't even know. Beginning of the year, all this, I'm going to hear it again. Oh, they're faster, and they figured out the power play. When are they going to figure out the power play? The power play, you're supposed to be at an advantage. They're at a disadvantage. How could you be at a disadvantage when you have more fucking guys on the ice? Year after year after year after stinking year. You go to the cup, you get a lead on the stinking road, and you blow it in overtime. Again, you blow the lead and lose in overtime. 2 games in a row to the Kings when they're playing for the Cup. Series over. This stinking series against the Senators, 2 road games, big leads, blow them, lose them in overtime. 3 times in this playoff year. 3 stinking times. The Rangers had a lead in the last few minutes in period 3. Let the game get tied and lost in overtime. 3 times. They only played 11 fucking games. 13, whatever it is. Jesus Christ. Done. And listen, I hope for Edwards and I hope for White. I hope the Capitals kick the fuck out of the Penguins tomorrow and beat Crosby and move on to the next round and do what my goddamn Rangers couldn't do. Just for that. Fed up. Melt the ice. Melt the stinking ice and don't put it back in the garden. I don't want to see the stinking Rangers again. And take the basketball cart and use the wood for fucking fire. Close the goddamn... Make the garden just for combat sports, fucking concerts, and Disney on Ice. Sports don't belong at the Garden anymore. They can't win. The Knicks haven't won since the stinking 70s. The Rangers won 1 time in 60 years. Close the stinking Garden down. Close it down. Melt the ice. It's over. And not only that, that cocksucker James Dolan owns both those teams and owns the goddamn cable company I have, and my internet service sucks. Melt the ice. Oh, God. That's going to do it. Cool down with AC. 16.